Hey everybody, welcome to Build Your SaaS. This is the behind the scenes story of building a web app, bootstrapping your own thing, getting to a significant amount of revenue so that you can quit your day job. And this week, John is away, but I caught up with Simon Bennett of snapshooter.io. I last spoke to him in May, I believe, right when the pandemic was kind of in full force. And I thought it would be a good idea to catch up, see what has happened since then. He had just quit his day job. Yeah, let's see how things have developed since then. So, Simon, the last time we chatted, I think was 7 months ago.
Yes, May. Yes, just after I'd gone full time, or
You'd just gone.
quit my job.
Yeah, you just gone. You had, like, you were going full time the next morning. And you're going full time on SnapShooter.
Yeah.
How long had you been working on SnapShooter up until that point?
It started in February 2017, so coming up to the 4-year anniversary soon.
Okay, so it was about 3 years to get you to the point where you could go full time?
Yep, that's right. Yeah. So I took the leap a little bit earlier, just due to circumstances with COVID and family and having essentially 2 jobs. But it seems to have paid off.
Yeah. So since you went full time, how's it been? Are you living the bootstrapper's dream or what?
I don't know what the bootstrapper's dream is, but revenue has definitely increased, and the trajectory of revenue has sort of increased from when I quit. If that makes sense. There's some sort of correlation between putting more effort in and getting more reward out.
Oh, interesting. Because that's not always the case. Sometimes people quit, and what they find is that even though they have all this extra time and all this extra energy, it doesn't actually move the needle that much. But for you, you feel it has.
Yes. So while maybe not like, I don't know, there's a bit of lag in the revenue charts or whatever, but it definitely feels like it's been key. Had a lot more time to think from a more zoomed out perspective of the business. So I think that's been probably the best thing about it.
Yeah. And can you give us a sense of like how you're doing revenue wise?
I've doubled revenue this year.
You've doubled revenue in 2020.
Yes. Yep. Monthly recurring revenue has doubled. Yeah.
Wow. So pretty successful year for you.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
And you're saying most of that growth happened once you decided to go full time.
Yes. So I decided to go full time slightly earlier than I did, and I started putting a lot more time into the business before I actually pulled the trigger to go full time. So from that point, I can see the revenue growth. It may have led me to go full time earlier because that's a very stressful thing to do, which is do a full job all day and then get straight back on the computer after sort of the wife's gone to bed and grind again, and then get up at 5 a.m. and grind again.
Yeah. And I think we talked a bit about this last time, but that is, I think it's especially more difficult for me now to really feel that, even though I felt it back then. But now that, Transistor is doing well and we're comfortable, you kind of forget about what that's like of, working a full day job and trying to make money, the old way.
Yes.
And then every night you get home and it's like, okay, well, and interspersed in there, I think, especially for those of us with families, is it's hard on your relationships. It's hard on your personal life when you're.
Yeah, I don't hear anyone really talking about this in the bootstrapping space. It's just all about them and the business, never sort of them, the business and the family.
Yeah. Like, do you think you think that part gets ignored a bit?
Maybe they're not in the same circumstances, but yeah, it has, it wasn't a positive thing for a married couple during those times. So,
yeah, I found that too. my ambition was to build an online business, and we had the other disadvantage of in my early 20s, I had these 2 snowboard shops that ended up closing and losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we had this old trauma from the past, which was like, oh, last time you did this, Justin, it didn't turn out so good.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And so, but even, what like just even waking up early on a Saturday morning to get a couple hours work in, or I would always stay up late on Friday nights to write my weekly newsletter. Even stuff like that I found really did negatively affect, my marriage. And it's just hard. You've got way more on your mind. You're way more exhausted emotionally and just with your energy. So yeah, I think you're right. I think people should talk about that part more.
Yeah. It's like the hidden secret. It cannot be just us two.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's just us. And I'm kind of conflicted about it because on one hand, it's hard to know if I could have done it any other way. Like there had to be this sacrifice. But on the flip side of that sacrifice was like, it's one thing to sacrifice things personally, just as an individual, but when it's affecting your family, and there's a real cost there. Yeah, it's hard to know because I don't know if I could have. It's kind of like going through the burning ring of fire, right? It's like it's necessary, but there is a cost to it. I don't know how to reconcile that yet.
No, I think I'm lucky. My wife has been very supportive with the whole thing. She was very clear that the jump to full time was going to happen once the business had proven itself. I wasn't going to go down the route of building up savings and then jumping into building a product. That scares me when I hear people do that. And she is very good at sort of, accepting that maybe I do want to go off and work on the business sometimes, or a lot of the time as it was, and also letting me know when it was too much. And so, but I don't know exactly how accurate that was. So I'm sure there's been quite a lot of sacrifice there. I try to make sure the children
let's get her on the microphone right now.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, I guess I say the thing I said, I never did it when the children were more awake. So
yeah, it's good to talk about it because there is a cost that doesn't get talked about. And even if you're doing it when the kids are sleeping or you're waking up super early, and to be honest, even now, like and maybe this is just a characteristic of mine that I can't turn off, but I'm just always thinking.
Yes, I have that.
And it's difficult to, like, I'm terrible during vacations and holidays and stuff. I don't know what to do with myself. It's like, I just can't stop thinking. And if there's not a pressing business thing to think about, then I get myself involved in some Twitter drama just to, to be engaged.
I was going to say, I think my best thinking time is a Saturday morning when both the children are eating their cereal, watching their tablets, wife's having a lay-in, and I'm just sat having a cup of tea, and like for some reason that's like top quality business thinking time when it really shouldn't be, but that's when I should definitely have a notepad in front of me.
Well, and it makes sense because sometimes just relaxing even a bit, like letting your brain just kind of cycle down even just a bit, gives you that space to. It's like as soon as I go snowboarding and as soon as I hit the chairlift, it's like all of a sudden I'm having tons and tons of ideas and thoughts and like. I write so many potential tweets and blog posts and stuff when I'm on the chairlift. I'm just like thinking about stuff, and
I hate that. I just want to like race back to the computer and start implementing.
Yeah, Yes, yeah. And maybe it's good to sometimes have those moments of downtime. Well, we know it's good to have moments of downtime where you let ideas simmer for a
Mhm.
little bit,
Yes.
and you can't act on them right away. Um, but yeah, I, the just going back to that idea of there being a cost
Hmm.
to that. Like, actually, this would be a good question for you. How well have you been sleeping?
Um, I have always slept really well.
Mm.
So,
So you
I
haven't
mean,
had trouble like
there've
staying up
been
at night thinking about the
no,
business?
there's been times when things have gone slightly wrong in the business, like, third party providers have gone down or there's issues with that, and that's been very stressful and hard to, possibly sleep. But generally, I've always been pretty good at sleeping. Um,
Yeah.
so I can't
Well,
help in
I
that
mean,
regard, unfortunately.
yeah, you're built for this because that's often the thing that people notice when they start a
Hmm.
business is that all of a sudden they used to be great sleepers,
Yeah.
but now it's like they can't get to sleep because they're up thinking about the business.
Hmm.
And it will fill all of your cycles, like any available cycles you have during the day or sometimes at night. That's part of the cost, I think, is when you're an employee, it's just a lot easier to unplug and be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, that's the boss's problem. I'm not going to worry about it.
So I think I've actually got
But
a bit better in this in the last couple of months because after I went full time, I continued to slam from morning till dusk, any available
mm,
time on the business
yeah,
because the revenue wasn't where it needed to be. So like there was there was still stress associated with that, and sort of as you get nearer to that sort of double number, things have been getting more relaxed, and I have just been allowing myself to go out in the garage and work on my car, and giving myself like the permission not to think about the business, and I can actually go out there and come back and have not thought about the business once, and
oh,
it's
that's
nice.
great. You've got a good outlet for that. I've noticed you posting photos of that old car. It's like an old Austin Mini or something.
It is, yes, it's not that old, I guess. It's 27 years old, the car, so um,
Okay.
I wish I had a 60s one, but they're really, really expensive. So bought a
Yeah.
more recent one, and yeah, it needs completely rebuilding. So that's my project now for the next 2 to 3 years, I imagine.
Yeah. And
Yes.
do you think partly like hitting that five-figure revenue number per month, is that what allows you to relax a little bit?
Yes, I guess I could be slightly more comfortable with that because obviously there's still expenses, and I'm still not as well off as I was with Snapshooter and a job. But I don't know,
Mm,
it's kind of like a bit of permission to just zone out.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I think even when Transistor started paying me, I think $5,000 a month, which wasn't enough to pay for all of my family's expenses, but at that moment I relaxed a lot.
Hmm.
And
You can hear it in your
I
podcast when you go through
yes,
the
yeah.
timeline. Yeah, you
Yeah,
could probably
a lot of
pinpoint
people
the
said that.
exact point when you.
Yeah, a lot of people said that they could hear it in my voice. And even my dad, he came and visited and said, "Man, I haven't you haven't seemed this relaxed in a while." I would start like spending more time at the coffee shop, more
Hmm.
time going for walks. It just didn't feel like I needed to hustle.
Yeah.
And I think the hustle is actually, it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this because there's this weird tension where, certainly sometimes and in certain businesses, hustling more delivers, like accelerates your growth. But in my experience, um, a lot of our growth is disconnected from the effort we put in. You know what I mean? Like the market actually has carried a lot of our growth,
Mm,
um, but at the same time, it is connected.
I
It's
don't know. It's,
tricky
it's like
to
a lagging thing as well. You can see that kind of.
yeah. Like even though I feel like my personal brand and my Twitter presence and my
Hmm.
blog and my newsletter doesn't actually provide that much of Transistor's growth. At the same time, I'm like, but I can't like give it up because I know that it contributes something, and I'm not entirely sure what chunk that gives. And so it's kind of like,
I've been
the
thinking
old
about this
advertising.
a lot because it's like actually getting good attribution towards what you're doing, and then you listen to WP Engine with the talk about how he's puts 10 grand into advertising and he gets 15 grand back, and you're like, I have not got that anywhere. Like there's no chuck money in. It's so, it is. I'm just hoping I'm chipping away at the right things and pushing the needle forward in the right ways, and to measure that and to know what is like the right amount to put in. So, for example, a customer today invited me to a Facebook group that they're in for a whole bunch of like WordPress hosts, and I have a quick search through, and the guy's been promoting me for the last 6 months, and that's totally, until he mentioned that to me today, there's no way you could put any attribution on where these customers are coming from and why suddenly I've got an influx of these people. And how do you measure that, and how do you know? Like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what my point is. It's very loose in terms of.
Yes, but this is why I love surfing as a metaphor for entrepreneurship, because so much of it is just being in the water.
Yes.
It's like, well, how come you caught that wave, or how come you noticed that thing, or how come you got invited to that surf spot? In this case, you got invited to that Facebook group. And it's like, well, I'm in the water. And if and this is why I also worry about like disengaging. I don't want to disengage too much. I don't want to get too comfortable, because I want to be in the water. I want to be available for those opportunities where someone says, hey, come to this Facebook group. And then I go in there and I search and notice he's been recommending me. Like those are the moments. And I would also say, like, about WP Engine, like there's very few SaaS companies that I know right now that have any sort of, I shouldn't say very few, but a lot of my friends who have SaaS companies do not have a advertising flywheel, the way that he described it in that talk. And, like anecdotally, it's harder to get those going now because AdWords are so competitive. There's a lot of well-funded, either venture-backed startups or enterprise companies who are willing to spend tons and tons of money. And so it's just harder for bootstrapped companies to kind of play in that field and, invest $10,000 and get $15,000 back.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't have the cash flow. So.
But I mean, if you found, it's still worth experimenting, because if you found, a way of, like, one thing I'm experimenting with right now is I'm going to give away 10 free microphones to people who sign up for any annual plan. So even though our starter annual plan is only $190, and in some cases, depending on like if I'm shipping these to Canadians or Europeans, it costs me like $120 to, buy it and ship it to them. But I have this sense that it's an interesting experiment, because we're still making profit on it. And, we pay our affiliates 25% of revenue ongoing. And so this might be a way of maybe, like, when you give customers something, LTV increases by 2 or 3 times. Well, if that's true, then it's worth making that investment, even though it's like, I don't know how we'd do it at scale, but it's an interesting experiment, because if it does end up being a flywheel where we can see, everybody in this cohort, their LTV is 2 or 3 times higher, then this is worth doing, right?
Yeah. Are you going to brand the microphone?
I wish I could. I have even thought about like, I wonder if I should just get these manufactured, but that would be sound tech and audio, like that. I think
not
that'd
your
be difficult.
business, yeah.
Amazon has one. Amazon has an Amazon Basics microphone that they sell.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite at that scale.
No. It's an interesting idea. I wonder what I could send out to people other than mugs. And t-shirts.
Yeah,
and
I mean, even mugs though is a worthwhile experiment. There is this psychological phenomena, which is when you give somebody a gift, they are just more endeared to you, yes. Right?
More, owe you a favor back.
Yeah, they feel like they owe you a favor back. I think this is out of the Persuasion book, right? Have you read that yet?
I have not, no.
It's a good read. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. It's worth reading it.
Okay.
But yeah, I think even, I mean, this is why companies send out swag. This is why, even, like this coffee shop I go to, the owner has instructed his staff to welcome me by name every time I come in. It's like a big, like, hey, it's Justin, he's here. And they are completely manipulating me emotionally. Yes. Right? Like, who doesn't like going to the local pub and having the bartender know your name and already know your drink, and for you to be kind of treated as a big deal? How
bad would you feel if they spotted you going into a neighboring coffee shop? cheating on them.
They do actually, because sometimes I go to other places and I've been caught for sure. But I mean, I've spent so much money there that they know where my allegiance is. So I think bootstrappers especially can leverage that. Like you can build a relationship and a rapport with each of your customers. You can give them additional help. You can, when you're sending them emails, you can include lines that let them know that you know who they are and that you appreciate their business and that they are a VIP in your world, right? And I think those folks, just like you said, like it's very unlikely that I'm going to switch coffee shops because there's just so much built up, not just goodwill, but
loyalty and
loyalty. Like even if they were being malicious, which they're not, but even if they were being malicious, it would be hard to switch because human beings are just primed for that kind of, we want acceptance and connection and to feel significant.
The next question is, do you wait until the coffee shop is full before you go in so everyone knows how well they actually appreciate you?
I mean, I do like that too.
I'm not going to go in if it's empty. It's pointless.
but there's a SaaS equivalent to this, which is when you use your channels to highlight customers, when you do case studies on them, when you retweet them, when you like all of that stuff makes people feel special and is one way I think bootstrappers can care for customers. Has there been a particular channel, and I realize you probably don't want to say too much, but particular channel or way that people are finding you?
It's primarily through search, but word of mouth has actually become. I started doing sort of a little survey when people join using Refiner, and I can't recommend their product enough because it's so easy to set up. And asking sort of like an onboarding survey, and like the number of people who say word of mouth is crazy.
Interesting.
And it's like maybe I need to work on a way of sort of making that easier to promote. But that is a significant channel, along with sort of the other pretty common ones.
Interesting. One way we're using Rewardful. So Rewardful manages all of our affiliate campaigns, but I also got them to set up a 0% affiliate campaign. And one way we're using that is to track other kinds of invites. So there's some of our customers that don't want to become affiliates, but I say, hey, use this code when you refer us, and every month I'm going to choose a winner and send them a prize. Yeah. And I think you and others could do something like that, which is you can even have them sign up under a 0% campaign or use their API and automatically generate.
Yeah, I didn't actually have much luck with the pure affiliate program. I didn't really bring many people in, and the people it did bring in were kind of people who were setting up businesses anyway. So,
yeah. Yeah, but I think to encourage your customers to refer you, that might be another way of using something like that, giving them a referral link they can use. And that would certainly allow you to, then you would see, whoa, this one guy is, we're getting tons of referrals from him. And then you reach out and he's like, oh yeah, I have a Facebook group. And I think sometimes just recognizing that, especially if your product is good, people want to share it. And I think people do want the acknowledgement. Yeah, I'm sharing you on social media.
It goes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps them feel good. Exactly.
Spread a bit of goodwill,
Yeah. And the ability to, say you can do things like contests or prizes or giveaways or whatever. Yep. And that may or may not incentivize people. A lot of folks will just share it regardless. But I think having a line like, hey, here's a referral link, be sure to use it so we can thank you, is a fine line that a lot of people would probably use.
So I'll write that down, but I'll listen to this later.
Yeah, we're recording. I might use that exact line, actually.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you are now in the comfortable stage of your SaaS, or do you feel like now you've just kind of hit what you were making when you were employed? It seems like people get to a number where they get very comfortable. Do you feel like you're there, or you're approaching it, or that's the next goal?
More comfortable. In an analogy form, I would describe myself as no longer sprinting and sort of bedding in for the long marathon.
Got it.
That's where I would see myself. So I know there's still a hell of a lot of work to sort of churn out. I'm really sort of, especially with the Christmas coming up soon. So this week for me is a bit of a sort of wrap it up week, because the schools close at the end of the week, and I'm sort of really just, my mind is on next year already, and just what the plan is there, getting things in place, I don't know how many meetings I've got lined up for the beginning of January already. But yeah, it feels like next year will be getting a good pace going and just continually.
Yeah. So you're feeling like next year is going to be.
I hope to double again. That's the
hope. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard talking about money because so many people are in a different stage of life, right? And but one thing I have thought about is, for a long time I was just trying to create a business that was just allowing me to survive. It pays my family's bills, but I'm not paying off any debt. I'm not saving any money. I'm not investing anything. I'm just this is just enough to pay our family's bills. And I'm assuming you feel like you're there now pretty much?
Yeah. It could be better in terms of sort of investing in the pension, which I stopped doing when I went full time and stuff like that. So I'm planning to sort of spend on sort of services and consultants in areas that are going to help grow the business, and potentially delaying the saving just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
The goal of end of 2021 would definitely be to be reinstating and sort of making up the loss. But yes, in terms of sort of finance, it's still tight. And I guess it's difficult in terms of knowing whether investing a little more now is going to reap a better reward, or whether I should just, start saving, or I don't know.
Yeah. No, I can completely identify with that. It's that building stage is so tricky. Going from 0 to 1 isn't very difficult. Like no product to something that at least some people want is difficult in of itself. But then like going from 1 to 2, which is like actually getting some form of traction where this thing gets up to 10K MRR or whatever. That's like the next step for most folks. And then beyond that, in most economies in the world, whether you're single or you have a family, like beyond that, that's where it's like, okay, like this thing is pretty much working, but it's still not quite better than having a job. It is in one sense, like, yes, when I was only making $5,000 a month from Transistor, I was happier. I had more free time. I was, I'd take days off and go snowboarding. Like I had the freedom part and the lifestyle part, which is important. But my debate online with some people lately has been like, it can't just be the lifestyle part. Like you can't just like be treading water financially and then be like, okay, I'm good. Now I'm just going to go, live on the beach and have a great life, because to have kind of a long lasting lifestyle change, you need the money. You need financial margin. And it can't be enough to just be like scraping by. Or the way I described treading water for a lot of my entrepreneurial journey was like, some days my head is way above water and some days I'm underwater. And that feeling of just being like, whoa, like this month I made 20 grand. It's amazing. But then like 3 months later, it's like, oh crap, I didn't make any money this month. This is a disaster. Like I don't, and all through that, I had a pretty good lifestyle in the sense that I could, again, go snowboarding or go to the beach or whatever. But it wasn't until there was really sustainable revenue and good margins, like enough margin for me to.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely margin. Yeah. I mean, if you just imagine going up and down every month, you'd rather make sure that the dips weren't going under.
Yes.
To get yourself sort of nicely. Yeah. That's where I am at the moment, where we don't have margins. I've come to accept and I'm comfortable at the moment with that. But, long term, that's not a sort of sustainable thing to be doing. And like, yes, I could take a 5-year sacrifice of doing that, but, otherwise, you should have stayed in a job where they were paying your pension contributions and, you were sorted in life. Because at the moment now, if I was to retire, I have nothing. I mean, obviously I have assets in a business, but I guess that's what you end up with at this stage is you only have the asset of the business. You haven't been able to liquidate anything. So
yeah. I mean, and that is the advantage is that, I mean, it's not true in all cases. Some people own things that are worthless, but when you're an employee, you don't really have any ownership. And so this at least allows you to build something. And when you're a consultant or a freelancer, you don't really have ownership. You don't have a saleable asset, really. But with software, at least right now, in our context right now, there's somebody that would want to buy it. And whether that's 1.5 times annual recurring revenue or 2.5 or 10 times or whatever. We had a competitor that was purchased, I'm pretty sure, for 14 times annual recurring
14
revenue.
times?
Yeah.
Wow.
You get those when you get a big company and they're buying for all sorts of other reasons, including signaling, including just like, like it's a big radio company and they need to get into the podcast market. And so it's like, okay, well, we got to make this move. And yeah, they'll pay.
I guess it depends what their actual monthly recurring revenue was, how much of a jackpot that was for them. But yeah.
Yeah. And
are they still around after that acquisition, or has it all dissolved away in many of these?
It'll be interesting actually to see what happens. My guess is that, I don't know if they'll continue to be run. Like corporate finance and corporate acquisition finance does not make a lot of sense to me. But some of these companies are so big that they can they can, roll the dice and go, well, 28 million. Like as an acquisition, 28 million is not that much to them, which blows my mind. But
it's always interesting with the founders of that and how they're, whether whether they just got straight cash or there's like an earn out because, all the dynamics of whether the company just ends up disappearing after 1 year.
Yeah.
No one gets their earn outs and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting space.
It's totally interesting.
Did they make you an offer? This is what I want to know.
They didn't make us an offer. No, we did get another offer from a company that was way more. I think they were hoping to get us for, 2 times annual recurring revenue or whatever at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just like, no, like that doesn't make sense. And I'm super glad we didn't. I mean, it just did not make any sense. It would have, at the time, it wouldn't have been enough to, and since then, like we've probably made enough we haven't realized all that cash yet, but the run rate is enough that it was like, we'll make that in cash flow, right?
Essentially, I've had 2 conversations with FE International in the past. Probably in the end of 2019, the beginning of 2019, I talked to them and they gave me a price and I sort of ummed and ahed. And then unsolicited, they gave me an offer the beginning of this year.
Oh, really?
Well, kind of, they kind of, they're keen. You're in the CRM system.
Yeah.
And they gave me a price and I said no, but it's interesting now looking at sort of where I am now, that would have been a terrible decision.
Yeah. But, if you're growing, it's almost, if you're growing at any kind of, especially you doubled MRR. So think about that, like from a numbers point of view. So let's just like make the numbers really small. So let's say you're at 1,000 MRR and so that's times 12, that's 12,000, annual run rate. And they say, well, we'll give you 1.5 times or even 2 times. So that's $24,000. They're saying we'll buy this off you for $24,000. But then if you grow by 100% and now you're at $2,000 a month, you've already realized that purchase in annual recurring revenue, right? Right.
Yes.
So they would have bought it you for $24,000, but now your annual recurring run rate is $24,000.
Yeah, you sort of knock the yield numbers off, don't you, if you're growing? So.
Yeah. So I think if you're growing at any sort of rate, it doesn't make sense unless what they're offering you is bigger. And FE International, I don't think they do deals that are that many deals that are 5x revenue or higher. Like it just doesn't happen. So. Yeah, usually better to stay the course if you can. The other thing I don't like about it, Simon, is it feels like there's a little bit of praying, like not praying to God, but preying on prey. Preying on people who are a little bit desperate, like bootstrappers when they're building something. And you're freaking out because you're like, it's just not quite enough yet. And I just really need some cash. The kids need braces. That pressure, it feels like sometimes that's being preyed upon by both investors and acquirers. Because, you can buy a business for way cheaper. At the early stage, even if they're growing, because they haven't yet hit scale where, if you're at $5,000 MRR a month, it's like, I just need more money. Like, the family's got needs and it's easy to give.
Especially when that business is not completely passive and you need to be in 2 places at the same time. And I guess that's where something like a course works quite well for people when...
Yeah, if you can
doesn't require that. Yeah, if you can, yeah.
The problem with a course is that, I mean, business is like this in general, but a course is the culmination of years of expertise and audience building and network building. And it kind of all culminates in this one sale. And you also have to correctly anticipate demand, right? Because putting in that much effort for something like that is only worth it if you get, you know, a mass of customers buying it. And I feel like with like marketing,
I shouldn't comment. I don't know the space at all. So
well, no, I think it can be like, I mean, like for Adam Wathan, releasing refactoring to collections ended up being a great idea because it made enough sales that he had optionality. He could kind of do what he needed to do. But I think it's a hard one to kind of like shoehorn when you're like, oh, I could really use some startup capital right now. That has
always been the thing when I thought about those offers was I didn't ever have at the time, I still don't, like plan B, like the second startup that I feel is going to be better. So I have, what would I do with that money? Like I don't have something to directly invest it into. So
yeah, I think it would.
I don't like that. I was very risk averse.
Yeah.
So to go into the boat of, okay, well now I've got, $200,000 to pump into this next business idea and give myself a 2-year runway or a year runway. Like I don't know. That's especially with no proof of idea. And even now, if I sold, what on earth would I do with my time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
I'd feel lost. I'd be like sold my identity.
Well, yeah. And it would have to be enough money that.
And it's not enough money to just check out.
If someone gave either of us $10 million, yes, I think we would take it and we would be fine. we would figure out what to do, right? You'd buy that 1960s Mini. You'd be working on that. You'd be, around for the kids. You'd still be working on little projects, but there would be no pressure for them to succeed commercially, right?
No.
But
no. If someone, if you're listening, I will take that £10 million offer. You know my email.
This show just has so many listeners with $10 million burning in their pocket, and they're just waiting for the opportunity.
You already heard it doubled this year, and it's going to double next year.
That's true. Get in now. Get in at the ground floor, people. So I'm wondering who are your competitors, by the way? I'm looking Snapshooter alternatives. I'm seeing there's some other folks in the space. Are there some big movers that you could steal market share away from? Is that kind of one growth opportunity?
I've been thinking about this. I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. So some of the companies who are bigger in the backup space are very, very enterprisey. Like it's, so in this kind of small to medium size business, which is kind of where I'm at, there's not that many competitors. There's one who just recently increased their prices, which I was like, perfect Twitter opportunity.
Yeah.
To do some aggressive marketing, which has worked. It's worked. That definitely worked.
Really?
Yeah, I got phone calls and everything, meetings, and customers moved over and all sorts. So that was worth it. It was nice getting like a support request saying we agree and would like to have a meeting. Perfect.
Did you then write a alternative 2 page for that competitor?
Yes, yeah, we have an alternative 2 that ranks quite well when you search for competitor alternative.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's difficult with the other people because it's kind of a different solution when you go more to the enterprise. It's kind of where it's part of the business is stepping towards. So maybe in the future I'll be better in sort of battling that. But yeah, that's a hard question. There's a lot of people who I would say are taking heavy inspiration from what I'm doing at the moment.
So you're starting to get some copycats.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's maybe one of the things that sort of spurred me on at the end of last year. Maybe one of the best things that ever happened.
Really? The copycats?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me about that. So like what happened? It just made you feel like I'm going to show these guys? Or
I was like, that is what kept me up at night, to be honest. And if you're listening, fuck off, you dick. I don't know if we should just cut that out.
Let's keep it in.
And yes, so it was difficult. There were a few there were some bad practices. They didn't just set up in the shop next door. They, performed things that were shady. So
yeah.
So it wasn't that sort of definitely got me angry.
Yeah. But did you find that anger motivating?
Eventually, yes. So
okay.
after the cool down,
yeah,
it was a case of let's pick up the pace, and sort of the business doesn't look the same as it did when that happened. Unfortunately, it seems like he lags 6 months behind. So if I release something, it's then poof in the market 6 months later. So
yeah, let's talk about this, because this is something that we experienced with Transistor too. So we have competitors like this too, and specifically one that came after us and has every right to be in the market, but definitely seemed like some things they copy from us, 6 months later or whatever. And this is just capitalism, right? Like, this is what you have to deal with. They're not stealing any intellectual property. Now, if they were like, we have another company that is just getting into the market, and their employees are continuously signing up for Transistor accounts under their personal emails. And we're talking to a lawyer about that, because in that case, those employees are signing user agreements.
Yep, I have the same thing. This guy signs up, he tries the product.
Yeah.
And you're like, did you not read the terms? It's very sort of clear in there.
Yeah. You can't misrepresent yourself, basically, right? And anyway, so we have to think about how we're going to fight this. And really, in my mind, the way to fight this is investing in brand, because that's one place where they can't, where we can create a significant moat, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think about stuff like that? Do you think there's opportunity for you there?
This is definitely the term that's been coming up a lot with moat and trying to do. So in some, a few things have happened in terms of trying to strengthen that. I formed, so in the new year, an official partnership with a large hosting providers coming out. So that's a pretty defensible moat there. The other thing is sort of some of the plans for marketing next year are I'm allocating an entire sort of year's worth of running against that. So I feel that that's a pretty good moat that's going to stop, an indie hacker's not going to, or maybe they will, but, potentially keep up with that sort of pace of content and stuff like that is going to be hard for someone to do. And yeah, I am doing a lot of, that's the first meeting next year is talking with a copywriter to sort of really get my message across, because I don't feel I'm very good at it. And when I talk to customers, like, that's what they're telling me. Like, they saw me on there, and that's one of the reasons they went. So
yes,
you can't copy me.
Yes, exactly. So. And to be honest, another moat, defensible moat, is the longer you last, the longer you stay alive, the more, like, if it took you up until now to get invited to that Facebook group and to meet all those people and to have that channel happen to you, those things happen when time elapses. Like, part of just being in the water for a longer period of time can be an advantage. There's a flip side where sometimes you get too comfortable or too, whatever. But
yes, the
longer you last, the more, that's a moat as well. And Yeah, I'm cheering
Yeah.
for you, man. I hope you last a long time.
Yeah, well, that's my plan, is to keep swimming.
Good.
So you can try and catch up, but I'm not going to stop. So
there you go, folks. Definitely, if you need backups, go check out snapshooter.io. And if you're a customer, the best gift you could give Simon is a review, a testimonial, a tweet. Those kind of activities mean the world to me as an indie software developer. And so if you've used Snapshooter, go on Capterra or whatever and leave a review. That you can do that today, and that would have a significant impact on Simon's business. Anything else people should know, Simon?
We have a lot more backup offerings than the last time I was on here. So if people are interested in that,
we
now got sort of the native WordPress backup, the Laravel backups. We're adding more and more. So
look at this.
They come in as people ask. So
DigitalOcean, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Amazon Lightsail, Exascale, Hetzner. I haven't even heard of some of these. You do databases now too, and applications. Yep. Laravel, WordPress, Ghost. Wow.
Ghost, yeah.
Impressive.
We're adding more as people ask. So, and that was a big part of this year, and the big push was to build an engine, a new backup engine into the core of Snapshooter that allows us to easily add new ones. So,
well, beauty. That's awesome. Cool.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks, Simon. All right, let's close things out with some shout outs to our Patreon supporters. Thanks to everyone. Take It EV Podcast, Ethan Gunderson, Diogo, Chris Willow, Mason Hensley, Boria Solaire, Ward Sandler, Eric Lima, James Sowers, Travis Fisher, Matt Buckley, Russell Brown, Evandro Sassy, Praduma Schembecker, Noah Prail, Robert Simplicio, Colin Gray, Josh Smith, Ivan Kirkovic, Shane Smith, Austin Lovelace, Simon Bennett. Hey, Simon. And Michael Sitver, Paul Jarvis, and Jack Ellis, Dan Buddha, Darby Frey, Samori Augusto, Dave Young, Brad from Canada, Sammy Schukert, Mike Walker, Adam Duvander, Dave Junta, and Kyle Fox from GetRewardful.com. Thanks for listening. Have a great holiday. We'll see you soon.